What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Foster Effect, where we have conversations about awareness, hope, resources in the foster care community. I'm your host, John Widrick, and as always, we have our wonderful co-hosts, Jennifer Gallagher, in the house. But today, I want to welcome Pastor Todd Griggs in the house. A little bit about Todd. Todd is a leadership coach, speaker, growth strategist with over 20 years of experience developing leaders in churches, organizations. Super passionate about helping individuals, teams break through limiting patterns, growing intentionally, and leading with clarity, conviction, and character. He's a beast. Todd, just want to honor you. Thanks for being on, my man.
Yeah, thank you, John. Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.
Love you both.
Yeah, love you too, my man. You know, I'm excited. Today we're going to be talking about parenting, specifically the difference between punishment and discipline, with what each one produces and how parents can respond with wisdom and how to raise kids in both truth and grace. And man, what a huge topic. I know I'm a parent of 3 amazing children, and I probably don't go to bed ever without feeling like, man, I dropped the ball in some capacity today.
Yes, so true.
And
so
just
true.
kind of, you know, having the reel in my head, the flash reel of like, okay, what did I do well? What didn't I do well? And it's tough. You know, parenting is challenging. Jen, you never feel that way, do you?
Always. You know, it's always the thing, like when you get onto your kids in the morning before you drop them off at school and all day long, you're like, oh, I hate that. But then when you're kids and you think that they're thinking about it all day long while they're at school, and then they get in the car and furthest thing on their mind.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
always struggling.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to give kind of the audience some clarity as far as, you know, so I have 3 kids, 14, 12, and 8, boy, girl, boy. Jen, you have how many kiddos?
Yes, I have girl 19, girl
Oof.
12. I know.
Jesus.
Actually, they're going to be 13. So Lainey and Bo are the middle littles. Lainey currently 12 and 10, but they'll both be 13 and 11 this week. And then we have the little guy who's been in our home for 3 years now, who is 3 years old. So starting all over again.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Todd, you have a crew at your house too. What are your ages, my man?
Yeah, we have 2. So my daughter's going to be 20 next month, and she's getting ready to move, which is a whole deal in itself. And then my son just turned 18, and he's finishing up his junior year. He's a little bit of an older junior, so he'll be finishing up his senior year in high school next year. So we're getting close to the empty nest space, and it's a deal.
Yeah,
it's a
that's
deal.
incredible. Yeah, so I mean, just between 3 people on here, we have, you know, just under 10 kids. You know, so pretty wild.
We have a whole
but
baseball
kind of just,
team.
Truly, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's how many people are actually on a baseball team? I don't even know the answer to that.
11, 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, we're
We
getting
got
somewhere. So I think first off, Todd, walk me through just from your perspective, like what, just to kind of bring some clarity, like when we think of punishment, that doesn't always necessarily come across as a negative to people. Like, hey, you're getting punished, you did something wrong. But I think maybe just for clarity, like from your perspective, like what's the difference between punishment and discipline from a healthy parenting perspective?
Yeah, what a great question and topic to kind of unpack today. Thanks for including me on this. You know, you can get into a little bit of semantics there with punishment and discipline, but if we can categorize them, it will help us in our approach to parenting and how we engage with our students and with our children. And really, for me, punishment is really looking and focusing on what was done wrong. And trying to really, I want to correct behavior. So I want you to act differently. I want you to talk differently. I want you to show up differently. But discipline, if it's done right, is focusing on helping them walk right, live right, have a right, healthy mentality, mindset. It's really future based. It's like, hey, this is why we're doing this today so that you can walk in this tomorrow. And so punishment is really it can be emotional. It can be just focused on the moment, where discipline, yes, it's done in the moment, but it's with the intention of helping with better patterns tomorrow.
Man, that's so good. Yeah, I mean, I'm the one who came up with this topic, and to be honest with you, I was like, man, I don't even really know what the difference is between punishment.
That is great.
It's kind of funny. I was like, what are we talking about here?
What are we talking about?
Yeah, and the interesting thing, we all grow up in these. Gosh, we all come with different baggage from how we were raised. And I love your response there. That's so good. And why do you think so many parents default to punishment when their child may actually need more discipline? Like, because that seems to be kind of what you described. I know that's kind of my natural go-to, where it's like, okay, that's not what we do here, and it's like, behavior correction. But I guess I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts on why do we naturally default to that versus discipline?
I think it comes down to is being stuck in the moment and not thinking through the process. So we get lost in right now, right here, this child is acting up, this situation's happening, and my emotions move me to a response or a reaction. And so if we aren't managed in our emotions, is we get lost in the moment, we lose focus of what could be and how we move them forward. And so we want the thing to stop now, whether it's the acting up, it's the tantrum, it's the problem, it's the attitude, it's the you didn't listen, you didn't do what I asked. And so we want that in that moment to be fixed, and we lose sight of the power of what's next. And so we may get calm, or we may get peace, or we may get quiet in that moment, but what have we actually set up for future opportunity? And so I really want to come down to is it's control. Really, at the end of the day, as parenting, we're trying to control the moment, the student, the situation. And so if I can remember, it's not just about controlling in that moment, but I want growth over time, would be the biggest focus for where I come from, and what really learning through failure as a parent is that control sounds nice, but really, what am I setting my student up for in the future?
That's really good. Jen, thoughts on kind of your household, and the whole, do you default to punishment, to discipline? You seem like you're more of like a discipline lady. You seem calm and collective.
Yes, but I feel like it's really taken some time to get there because, like you said, Todd, like in the moment, you just want to react, like you want it to stop. But kind of to what you said, Todd, I've done a lot of just trauma training over the years as a foster parent, and they kind of go back to the same thing in those trainings that what are you missing as a parent? And it comes back to pride and control. Like, what is it if we are yelling and screaming in that moment at our kids? There's really something in us that's missing, that we feel like we need that respect or that a pride issue. So, and something, I feel like I say this all the time, but something that Lisa Turker said that has always stuck with me over the years is exchange whispers with God before shouts with the world. And I can carry that over into my parenting too, of, hey, let me calm down and collect myself. Otherwise, we're just angry. And that's not biblical either. I feel like that's not the God that we serve. And we want to show Jesus to our kids, and we serve a forgiving and loving and just God. So I think the discipline is important, but it's the approach. So I love it.
That's really good.
That's great. It's a funny story. When I first met Pastor Todd, so we ended up going out on a boat together. We're on a boat, and we drop our anchor. We're in the water. We're hanging out. And I remember this moment specifically because I just saw a true moment of the lack of parenting skills that I had and my wife had versus the control and peace that Todd and his wife Micah had. And so here we throw this anchor in, and Ben's at the front, and he's trying to pull the anchor up, and the anchor's, I guess, was stuck. And so I thought he wasn't just pulling hard enough. And I was like, come on, man, use your muscle, get it in there. And so my wife and I start to kind of like freak out, and we're like, look, we're up at the front pulling and pulling and pulling. And I remember at that moment, like my wife and I going to immediate default of kind of frustration and kind of raising our voices at Ben and and he's yelling back at us. And I realized in that moment, like Todd and Micah are just very calm, just looking here. And Todd just kind of gets up and he goes, hey, okay, let me just see what we got going here. And it's all going to be okay. And I remember looking at my wife and like, okay, yeah, we just blew this relationship. They're never hanging out with us again.
No.
I'm pretty sure we had to cut the anchor. So it wasn't Ben's fault at all. It was stuck. No one could get it out. It's in those, it can be the smallest moments of something happens and we have this reaction, and we don't always know how we're going to react. It's just this immediate response that's our go-to. And, to both of your points, it's like, why am I reacting this way? Do I need to react this way? And is this crushing this kid's heart? Is it crushing his confidence, or am I speaking life into that just by being peaceful and being calm with it? And I think that's so special when we can get to that point. Hopefully in another couple of years I'll get there. I'm excited. So, or maybe after this podcast I'll take some things. It'll be good.
Yeah.
Todd,
Our kids are going to be watching it and commenting and be like, Mom,
I know,
that's not true. You yelled at me.
Yeah, comment, here it is for Jen, or, Dad or John. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? Todd, practically, like, how can parents correct behavior without shaming their kids? So walk us through kind of just some practical things. So it could be something as simple as the story I just shared, or, car rides always seem to be, I don't know why, car rides just seem to be like everybody's at each other's throats, and dad's driving and mom's yelling at the dad that he doesn't hit the car in front of him, and the kids are don't touch me in the back. Even just small things like that. What are things that we can do practically as parents to correct behavior without shaming our kiddos?
Yeah, it's a great question. Really, at the end of the day, everything comes back to pre-deciding. And what I mean by that is pre-deciding who you want to be as a parent and how you want to correct, and then how you correct. And what I mean by that is, if you have a set of vision and values for your family, you can actually correct everything through your values. And I think a lot of times in life, we will look at organizations, churches, restaurants, whatever it is, and it's, yeah, they have a mission, they have a vision, they have values. I think sometimes as families, we lose sight of how powerful that can be for us, is that we have a guiding light, we have a central focus, and then we have a set of values that we move everything through. And correction becomes more about how we will lead them through our values, as that's not in alignment with who we are and how we operate. So instead of it being an emotionally based response or reaction, is I'm settled in, hey, we didn't act in love there. Or, hey, we have a response of setting ourselves apart. We want to honor one another. And I noticed that in that scenario, you didn't honor your sister in that conversation. You didn't lead with love. And so that's the first thing that I would always lean into, is that I want to lead them through a set of values that they can attach to something while we're in that correction mode. And then the biggest thing is that I'm just going to use a statement, this is not who you are. So I'm not saying this is what you do all the time, and why do you always act that way, and why are you always frustrating, and why, I'm leading with, hey, that's not in alignment with who you are. And let me remind you who you are. I hear other parents, they will say, like, I'm going to just use my last name, but like, that's not how Griggses respond. That's not how Griggses show up. And I've used that a little bit here and there in my life, and with Jaden and Chloe. But it's such a powerful way to lead them forward rather than isolating the issue in front of them. Is that that's just not who you are, and we're gonna choose to be different. And I'm gonna challenge you to be different. I'm gonna love you through that process. I think if we can continue to lead, and it's not perfectly, but it's increasingly, and it's managing out the biggest thing for us as parents, and you already talked about it, John, it's managing our emotions while we are in the disciplining process, is making sure that I'm controlled, so that, and I've blown this 100 times, you guys, so I'm not talking about this perfection, and I've learned from messing up my own children, and I'm, the trauma that they're going to have to outwork in their lives because I didn't emotionally regulate myself before I entered into a conversation. But when I am emotionally regulated and I manage those, I can lead them through what's going on better. And I've seen that show up in their lives, but I want to lead them through a set of values is the biggest part.
Yeah.
That's
I
good.
love the bigger picture that you brought it to, is the values, having those as a family, and then pointing back to those with, again, and then you followed up with, hey, this, we are so easily brought to that word always. You always do this, or and then you're so right,
Yes.
that is so detrimental, because we're creating identity there, where when you, with what you said, kind of flipping the switch and saying, hey, this isn't, the Griggs way, or this isn't the Gallagher way, or the Widrick way. This isn't who you are, and that's why we want to course correct here. Jen, thoughts on that as far as
No,
values
that's
concerned? I
good.
mean, how do you all run that through your pipeline at home?
No, I love that. I knew you would light up when he said values. John is such a
I am.
values driven, even at the Bridge House, which is so great. I love that. I love what you said, Todd, and such a reminder. I feel like I'm getting free parenting advice here, taking a parenting class because we do our Beau. Gosh, I love him, but he is such a rambunctious, free spirited. Like he's my. I don't want to say challenge, but yeah, he's fun. But I do sometimes I find myself in the moment, you always want to do that. Like, why do you always do this? Like, why does it always have to be this way with you? And I hate that because it does feel like I'm speaking so much negative things over him. But just kind of flipping that into something else like, hey, that's not who you are. That's not who God called you to be. This is who you are. How can we fix that? So I love that. That's great.
Yeah. Walk us through maybe just a couple values that you have in your house that would be maybe just some as parents are thinking through like how okay, I would probably say most I could be wrong. Most families probably don't have a set of family values that they would point to. Any maybe quick tips on like how do you get those, and then maybe how go about getting those together so that you can start kind of leaning into that, regardless of what they're age in. I mean, you can probably start whenever. I'm sure they don't have to be young kids when you start this.
Absolutely. And I would say if you don't have it, is sit down and work through it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a perfect model. It's just that you have something that you're moving towards. The one thing I would always say when it comes to vision and values for yourself or for your family is go on a journey. Don't feel like it has to be done overnight. It's something to wrestle with and something to chew on and mull over time. But the biggest thing is what I would do is sit down and you can land on a set of words. You know, Brene Brown has a list of words that you can just start pulling from, and I literally like circle 15 words that mean something to you and then go get the definitions. I love going to the Bible. Go find the Hebrew and the Greek for those words, and so that you can understand in greater depth. Go find the Latin root word for it, because those words need to have meaning for you. And then sit down and land on, I would say 3 to 7, and I wouldn't go beyond that because you want to have stuff that's readily available so that you can remember it and say it. So things that we've landed on, we immediately stole from our church. Our number one core value is God's word and his presence. So we want God's word and his presence to be at the center of our home. We pray that the Holy Spirit would fill our home, fill every room, fill every environment, that his presence would be in our home. Honor. We want to honor one another. We want to honor up, down, and all around. And so those are the things that we would instill in them. We want to lead with love. And we want joy and levity to be on our home. Levity is a big deal for me. We joke, we laugh, we mess with each other. We're very sarcastic, too sarcastic, but because we want that levity in our home. And then a big one for me just in the last few years, because when I've stepped into my coaching business, and then the mindset around this. So transformation is a really big part for us. I want Romans 12:2 to be a huge part of what we do in our lives. And I want our lives to be transformed over time through the word and through loving each other. That would be our set of values. I think it's just important to land. I have personal values. You know, we have organizational values, but it allows us to lead our lives forward.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I can't recommend that enough. I mean, that is something that has been huge for our family as well too. Like a couple of our values are um, always pray and never give up. And I think even just with that one, how many times when it comes to our kids and we're, oh, God doesn't answer our prayers, or man, Dad, can you pray for me because I feel sick, and I pray with them, and they still are sick, and it's like, well, hey, we're always going to continue to pray and never give up,
Yeah,
or
it's
stand up
great.
for what's right, even though it's hard. That's a value that we have, and just this kind of standing in the gap for what we know to be true, and even though it may cause damaging of friendships because they don't have the same values that they do, or uh, standing up for something that they know is difficult and challenging, ethically or morally. But having those in place, and then of course, we all at times break our values. The beautiful thing is that we give children the ability to hold us to those values too. Have you
Mm-hmm.
had a
Yeah.
situation where, and I know this is kind of getting a little bit more transparent, and anyone can speak to this, where your kids have challenged you to the value in which you created?
hmm my daughter is great at this.
Oh man, come on.
She is so since she's been young, we've always called her the great negotiator, and
Okay.
she would always lead with things like, "Well, how about this?" And
Mm,
so, 6, 7, 8 years old. Well, how about this, you guys? We're like, no, we said this. And she's like, I know, but how about this? And so Chloe's very good at calling me out, and we are very similar personalities, but the way she does it is very honoring. Honestly, is I can remember just recently, and this is a really tough moment for me because I lost my cool, and I lashed out at my son over a situation that where he was out of line, but I mishandled it, completely mishandled it, let my emotions take over. And so I went back to have a conversation with her because I was correcting him in front of her. And so
mm,
I said, "Hey, I'm sorry for that happening in front of you. I should have pulled him aside." And and she goes, "Yeah, I understand." She goes, "You mishandled it." And I went, "Oh, okay." She's like, there was no real honor and there was no real love in your
yeah,
tone in the way you
yeah.
went about it.
Totally.
And I said, "Okay, how would you have handled that differently?" And she says, "It was fine that you corrected him, but the way you corrected him and the way in which you went about it." And I was like, "I don't like you right now, and I'm going to step away from this conversation." I'm kidding. But it really challenged me. But I was so appreciative of her being able to have that space with me and knowing that she could step into that. And then what happened is I went back to my son and I said, "Hey, it was okay that I had stepped into that with you, but the way I did it wasn't okay. And I apologize." I said, "Will you forgive me? That wasn't okay to respond that way." And we had a really tough moment, tears, and still moving forward. And I will say it's one of the biggest moments where I really was out of my own character and out of alignment with our values. And my daughter calling me to something different that's through our set of values that we've been training since we were little.
Yeah,
They
that's
were
fantastic.
little.
That's fantastic. Jen, thoughts on that? I mean, just with like, I know your kiddos, you got some strong personalities, with obviously things that you guys value in your home and your kids speaking to them, maybe challenging you guys. How have you responded to that, seen that work out in your home?
Yeah, I would say Lainey is my kiddo who calls everybody out on everything, and Lainey is perfect and does no wrong. But so she's very good at coaching, but she does not like to be coached. So I would say that's our biggest challenge. But something that you said, Todd, that I'm curious because I feel like this is kind of an issue in our home, but we're a very sarcastic family too. And sometimes that can cause issues because we don't really know when to turn it off and when does it cross the line. Like we're very sarcastic and like, no, we're being serious right now, but don't know when to turn it off and turn it on. And sometimes it can be cross the line to disrespectful. So curious if that happens in your home and how you handle that.
Yeah, it does.
It's
And
so hard.
it is. I would say as they've gotten older, and sometimes I would use this, it's not fair, but it's like you need to know the difference. You need to know that I'm being serious now. They're like, "Dad, there's no way to tell sometimes," and it's not fair for them. But it is the reality. And so it is one of those things where at times, like as if that's the home or that's the nature of the home or the environment is going, "Hey, I'm serious right now. I'm not
Yeah.
joking. I am serious. So please hear me correctly." And if I say that, they immediately like respond like, "Oh," where I see it also, they will hurt each other, my kids, they will
Mm-hmm.
hurt each other because they are sarcastic. And so they don't
Yes.
realize that they're joking or they've taken it too far. And so
Yes.
they've gotten really good at forgiving each other and recognizing like they'll be in a fight for the night, but they'll come back tomorrow and be like, "All right, I was out of line and I'm sorry for hurting you." But it shows up quite a bit. So
Yes.
we have to have grace in that kind of environment.
Mm,
So
that's really
true.
good. Yeah, I love
John,
that.
are you like that? Is your family a
Yeah,
sarcastic? Do you have
yeah, we are. I mean, I don't, for me, I think, Todd is the master of sarcasm. I mean, he is like, and because he can keep a straight face, and you just sometimes, I've been in conversations with him or seen him in circles, and he does such a good job of just being able to kind of hold his cards close and be able to say something. And there's times where the team, it's just kind of like, is this is a joke, right? And he's like, no, and it's like, oh, okay, no, it was a joke, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah.
No, it's
So
so not
he's
fair
so
for
good at
people.
it. It's great. It's great. No, but we do, obviously we have a good go at each other and have a good time. And, I think, it takes wisdom as you're doing it to make sure you're not kind of being you're not tearing down, again, to what Pastor Todd said earlier about who they are. So you can kind of, you're not taking their identity away. You're not, you know creating comments or jokes around that's going to tear them down or hurt them, but at the same time, it's fun to pick on each other and allow them to do it to you too and kind of laugh about it. I think where you have to be careful is that, if you open up that space as a parent, that you have to be willing to take it too. So like what I've seen happen sometimes is where, we kind of start it, and, especially with Ben getting older, he's a little bit more witty now, or even Brooklyn can say some, like, she's got some one-liners sometimes, and all of a sudden now mom and dad are like, whoa, that was out of line. And it's like, well, hi, we were all having to go at each other, and now you just got offended, and that's not fair to them either, because if you're kind of opening up that pool. So there's been a couple of times where it's gotten a little bit, where like, okay, where I've had to kind of laugh at the same time, bring them back in and be like, hey guys, okay, let's bring it back. Like, this is kind of getting a little outside of the barrier that is healthy. But I think it just creates wisdom. But I do think it's good to be able to just have a good time together and joke around flaws and laugh. And I think that shows a lot of just strength and confidence in who you are, and it allows them to build some tougher skin as well too.
That's
But
true.
yeah, so I love that. I mean, kind of to bring it back to what Pastor Todd said, for that question, just for parents, for practically, like, how are some of these things practically that you can do? Again, coming up with your family values. Like, again, he said 3 to 7, coming up with those, putting them in an area where you guys can see them as a family. You're coaching to them. So these are, when there's something that comes outside of your values, you're bringing it back to the value. And then to what he said again,
Yeah.
too, that these values aren't just for you to hold them accountable, but they can go upward as well too, where they're holding you accountable and conversations are being had. So love that advice. I think that's so helpful. Jen, kind of from your perspective, I mean, you're in the foster care world like crazy. And quick question for you, so we have these things that we just talked about with our own home, but then for foster parents or caregivers, you have obviously something called trauma.
Mm-hmm.
That how do you feel like trauma should change the way we think about discipline? Is there anything that you've seen just with having over 15 kids in your home as a foster parent, that you're like, man, these this can be some challenges when it comes to having discipline and trauma kind of in the same
Yeah.
household.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we always, 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 most importantly, have to go back to the why behind the behavior, not the behavior itself. And I think if we can have compassion and understanding for the why behind the behavior, we can kind of regulate our emotions and coach and discipline to that. Because we do, I mean, also when a kid from trauma's brain is in fight or flight, like, we can't coach from that area. We have to be able to regulate and calm them down. And if we don't, we're doing more harm than good. I mean, that's another level of trauma for these kids. And yeah, one of my go-tos, and I don't have the parenting all together, but we did have a kiddo in our home. She was 8, and I can remember her therapist sharing with me, and it was on a hard day too, that I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to parent her. She has a lot of trauma, but they were working through some therapy, and something that she shared with her therapist. I always try to say, one of my big things is when my kids mess up or they break something or they tear something up, like, I don't want to bring shame on them during that moment. But she shared with her therapist that, in her home, you got in a lot of trouble over that. But she asked her, what happens in Miss Jen's home? And she said, well, Miss Jen always says, I love you more than I love that dish that you broke, or I love you more than whatever behavior. And so that stuck with me too. And I'm like, I always want to have that approach, that I love you more than whatever is happening. And so that we can parent from that way. And it is, these kids from trauma, from hard places, have, just a lot of emotions and trauma that they carry with them. And we have to understand the why behind that, or we're doing more harm than good.
Todd, you guys do a lot of coaching through your business with kids that have aged out of foster care, or maybe even parents that are fostering, or at-risk youth that are just parents are having a real tough time with. Kind of speak to that too, just, kind of when you're dealing with some of these harder situations because trauma's been so involved in their life, just kind of, again, going through the lens of discipline.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I would coach parents on is it's the being present. I think a lot of times we're looking for like the perfect parent. Well, there is no perfect parent. There is no perfect response in every moment. And so it's not about being perfect, it's about being present. And Jen, you said it really well. If I can help them regulate and that I'm not going to push them away, I'm not going to get frustrated and they have to bounce again and they have to go somewhere else, is that they know that this is a safe space to even lose some of their emotional regulation, is that this is a safe space to cry, to hurt, to be frustrated, to be angry, and that's not going to change the narrative. And so if we can stay present and emotionally regulated as the parent, as the foster parent, it creates a space where over time, because it's a thing that it's going to take time, right?
Yes.
It's not 6 months. It may not even be a year. It may be beyond that. But if we can keep reminding them that this is a safe space, I am a safe person, and I'm going to be present in these moments, it's going to allow for us to then coach, train, help move forward. And then I think we need a village when it comes to foster care. You need the foster parents, you need the youth pastors, you need the coaches, you need the other people to speak and come around them. We're seeing that in real time with some of the students that we're coaching, is they have multiple people around them helping point them forward. And I think those are some amazing ways to help create healthy humans for a healthy future.
That's so
That's
good.
great.
I love
that. I'd love, just kind of in closing, Todd, I know you got another wonderful group of people you're going to be speaking into their life here in about 30 minutes. So want to be respectful of your time, but kind of going into closing, I would love to give, starting with you, Jen, and then Todd, what parents listening, speak some life into them for, 15 seconds of just kind of some things that you would say to the foster care community. Jen, maybe you take that one, all the foster parents out there, and then Todd, just speak to the bio parents out there and give them a few, just a little bit of encouragement and love, whatever you'd like to say to them.
Yeah. I'll go first. One, just thank you for putting your yes on the table. It's not easy. There are people, though, who are here that maybe you don't even know that we're praying for you daily. And, God has called you to something and He will equip you for that calling. And even though it doesn't feel like it, He's there and He's working and He's called you for this purpose. And even if you may not feel like the greatest parent in the world, He thought that you were meant for this job. And so trust in that He put you here because He believed you were the person for the job. And we're just praying and believing for you in this journey.
Yeah, it's great. Todd, what you got to share to the bio parents?
Well, I don't want to follow that. That's not fair.
Like, Mother Truth over there.
Yeah. It's like, cool. And let's pray and we'll close this podcast.
Right, exactly. I know.
That's awesome. I always think, here's the reality. If you're showing up to listen to this podcast, it means you desire to be a good parent. You desire to love your kids well. So I'm going to just say this: you're doing better than you think you are. And sometimes it can feel difficult and frustrating. And am I messing them up? And all of that is that you're doing way better than you think you are. You're showing up here, which means you want to grow, which means you want to get better, which means you want to lead them better. And so just keep taking those steps. It's not giant leaps and bounds, it's incremental steps. And keep that growing going. Stay present, stay focused on your children, stay focused on the seasons that they're in. And you're going to make the right calls. And you're going to make the wrong calls. And then in that moment, be unreasonably forgiving with yourself. Just, you have to let it go. You have to forgive yourself and know that they know that you love them and that you care for them. And I would say, big thing, you're doing better than you think you are.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. So good, you guys. Well, man, thank you all for just being on and just speaking life into, truly so many amazing people, and parenting so hard. We all know it. It truly is. And, those that are fostering, like Jen said, man, thank you for putting your yes on the table. All the bio parents out there for just being present, like Pastor Todd said, man, keep going. For those of you that are kind of curious, if you're like, man, I'd love from what Pastor Todd kind of shared, you'd love to get more insight. I mean, he has an incredible coaching team, and I know he'd love to hear from you if you want to get in touch with him. Where do they find you at, my man?
Just my name, toddgriggs.com.
Cool.
And
There
go
it is.
right there.
That's
Yeah,
easy. Love that.
it is.
ToddGriggs.com. Look him up, and he's fantastic. For those of you that maybe don't know, his team has coached many of our kids in the Bridge House that are aging out of foster care, and they absolutely love his team. They do a fantastic job. And Todd, you're really a leader that continually invests in yourself and your education and learning in this space. And I just honor you for that, because it's not something that you're pulling from that maybe you learned 10 years ago. This is something that you're constantly growing in. And I think every time I talk to you, it's another level of certification that you just went through. And then you finish that when I'm like, oh, what do you do now? It's like, oh yeah, there's this new certification in education. I'm like, good Lord, man, you're making me feel like such a loser. I played Call of Duty for 2 hours last night.
Wow.
Get out.
No, but seriously, you're amazing.
Appreciate
bro.
that.
Man, just want to thank everyone for joining us today. As always, this podcast benefits the Bridge House, which is a nonprofit that provides housing for children in foster care and housing for young adults aging out of foster care. If you'd like to be part of this mission, you can see the link in the comments and bio to connect with us. Again, if you want to reach out to Todd, toddgriggs.com. I know he'd love to hear from you, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
Love you. Bye.